Hi there, welcome to or welcome back to Tiff Reads Books, where I read books and then I talk to you about them. And this is the start of my monthly wrap-ups, and I'm going to kind of combine a what did I read and not read last month for my TBR, and what's my TBR going to be this month, and kind of how I'm adjusting things, because I am 100% a mood reader, and giving myself a big list of books that I want to read at the beginning of the month is great for me. But then for me to put that list out there as, hey, this is everything I'm going to read this month, then I start to go, I don't want to do that. If I don't tell anyone, I will probably read them, but as soon as I tell people, I'm like, why would I do that? I just get irrationally against it. It is the oddest behavior, and I'm not going to try to explain it because I can't. So, but I'm going to adjust how I do things so that I can actually do more what I want to do. I read a lot this month, but it was not a lot of planned things, and I ended up going way off course on side quests. So I'm going to start by going over what I said I would read last month, and the first one is Congo. I didn't finish it, but I did start it. My brother and I are reading this together, and he had to pause, so I paused, and I will be picking this up because we want to get it done soon so that we can talk about it. This is a kind of older 1980s sci-fi thriller by Malcolm Crichton. This follows a couple of scientists who have to work together, even though they're from vastly different fields, to go collect a research team that something has happened to in Congo, in a very isolated area in the middle of the jungle, and other things start happening. But yeah, this is interesting. I have a lot of opinions, which we will get to when my brother and I talk about it together this coming month. The next thing I said I was going to read is Princess Bride. I did not start that one. I did start one on my Kindle, but this is the 25th anniversary edition. I started the 50th, and I just started reading the foreword from the author, or the adapter, in the beginning, and I just didn't get past that point. I was already kind of burnt out. So it's still sitting up there. I haven't read it. The next one is The Once and Future King, which is also still sitting up here. This is a King Arthur retelling, and is supposed to be the quintessential King Arthur telling. I still have not read it. It is deceptively thin. This is actually over 600 pages, nearly 700 pages, and it is tiny. So those vellum thin pages that you can see through. Then I have The Left Hand of Darkness, which I started last year, and I got 50 pages into, and after I read something this month that just kind of was off of this list, that was just such a disappointment, I just got really, I don't think I want to pick up one of these again, because I don't want to get disappointed by them and just stop reading, because that was a struggle for me to get through that book. And then when I finally did get through it, I was just angry, and I've been doing palate cleansers since. Then Black Tom, which I don't have, I returned it to the library. I did finish that one. Black Tom is a retelling of The Horror at Red Hook by H.P. Lovecraft, and instead we're following the perspective of one of the characters of Black Tom, who starts off in the book he's Charles Thomas Tester. He goes by Tommy, and he is kind of a down on his luck black man in Harlem in the 1920s, and he is struggling to get by because of all of the institutional racism in that area at the time. So he does odd jobs, with the emphasis on odd, to make money, and he gets approached in a park one day by a man who's like, if you come to this party and perform, even though Tommy's not very good at playing guitar, he's like, if you come and perform, I'll give you $500, and that's a massive amount of money at that time. And some things happen. Tommy agrees to go once. He comes home and finds a bunch of stuff has happened, and he just kind of escapes to go join up with this very odd man, and the cosmic horror kicks in from there. The thing that I didn't like about it is that we shifted perspective once that kicked in, to start following the detective who was trying to figure out what was going on, and I did not like the perspective shift. I would have much rather stayed with Tommy and seen what happened with him that kind of caused all of this. And I know, because it's a retelling of a short story and it's a novella, that we weren't going to get a whole lot of stuff, but I just felt it felt a little lackluster for me. I did still give it a 3.75. I really liked it. I just was missing that something. So that's that one. Organ Meats I did finish. So Organ Meats was another library book. It's back at the library. This one I did a video on it, so go check that one out. I'm not going to go through the plot of it because the plot is messy and convoluted, and it'll take me a long time to get through it, but I gave it a 4 as I think what I settled on. It was very surreal, very heady, and just weird, and I liked it. It still sits with me. Some imagery from it still sits with me. So I think a 4 is a good sitting for that, but it is not going to be a book for everyone. Then I have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is still up here unread. This was one that I was going to pick up after I finished the last one that I'm going to go through on this list. And I just didn't want to pick it. I'm worried. Okay, so it's a romantic fantasy, but I just didn't feel like I should go for it right now. Shadow and Bone, I also didn't pick up. I just was not in the mood for that type of fantasy at the moment, but I will be picking that one up. That is still on the shelf, unread. Gideon the Ninth, I'm still in the process through for my deep dive. I just want to kind of knock that out. So I'm going to be focusing on that really soon and just sitting down and finishing the book. Then Jade City, which is sitting up there. I did read that one and I loved it. It's a 5-star. We are following a family of siblings who are high up in this hierarchy of this kind of mafia-esque clan, where they wear jade, like just the stone, but because of their heritage, it gives them magical powers, and we're very urban setting, so it's kind of an urban fantasy with a lot of inter-clan politics. There's another clan that they start to kind of have a battle with between separating the city for income and things like that, and it's just a really interesting world that Fonda Lee has built, and I am excited and have just ordered myself for my birthday present the next 2 books in it. So hopefully this month I will be reading the next ones, but I'll get to that. And then Swordcatcher is the last one. It is also nowhere to be found because I donated it to my library. I did a very long video on why I did not like it, and it started off really neutral and average, and then there was some scene that happened that just dropped it down for me and I wanted it out of my house. So I donated it to my library because it was a pretty much brand new hardback. So they were willing to take it. But that put a bad taste in my mouth, and I finished that around the 20th, I think, and that just kind of put a bad taste in my mouth and really slowed me down on consuming books. Jade City as well, even though I liked it, is a very slow paced, and so that pacing kind of took me a little bit to get through. I think it took me 2 weeks to get through the book because I did put it aside for a little while to do something else, not because it wasn't good. It was good. I was just like, the pacing was really slow. So that's where I'm at with what I read last month from my list. I read so many other things that were not on my list. 4 books from my list of 12 that I actually finished last month. So let's bring that into this month. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every book I finished, but I did make progress on some things that I need to tell you about so that I can do this one. So one of the things I made progress with is I am reading the Kushiel's Legacy, the first trilogy, Phaedra's trilogy, and I started that in January. It is my boyfriend's favorite, one of his favorite series, and he really wanted me to read it, and I saw some people do some reviews recently where they explained it better than he did, and I went, okay, yeah, I could read that book. And I'm glad I did, because I fell in love with Kushiel's Dart in January. I read Kushiel's Chosen last month, liked it almost as much. So in March, I will be picking up Kushiel's Avatar, not this copy, but look how big this is. This is a very old beat up copy that my boyfriend has, one of his 2 very old beat up copies. So this is the 3rd book in the trilogy, in the original trilogy. I will be finishing this on audio. Audible has all 3 of them because they have released newer, updated versions on audio. So they have the old ones. There's a lot of dust on this. They have the old ones for free. So I will be finishing this. This is chunk. This is in the mass market paperback size, 750 pages. So I will be reading this. So that's the first one I'm going to read. Then I did Literary Diversions Fits Along. I was so bummed because I was able to go to the live and able to do the live, and then my work scheduled a last minute meeting over the exact time the live was happening. So I was able to come in for a little bit in the beginning, and I watched it back later, and I'm so sad I missed the live. But I will be doing the 2nd book, and since I started on audio, I think I will be finishing on audio. I have a hold on the physical or the digital book, but I think I'm just going to keep with the digital. The Assassin's Apprentice was the one I read last month. We were following Fitz, who I summed up in my Pisces books yesterday. Very badly. I summed up this book, so I'm not going to try again, but it is a high fantasy where we are following, very similar to the Phaedra's story, we are following a child as they develop into this highly political position in their world. And more and more that I read these older fantasies because the Kushiel's Dart series was from 2001. Assassin's Apprentice was from 1996, and then Game of Thrones was out around that time, and I realized that Jacqueline Carey, Robin Hobb, and George R. R. Martin have all blurbed each other at different points in time, and I'm like, this is the 1990s-ish, like, trilogy, like, trio of fantasy, and so I'm kind of excited to pick up Game of Thrones later this year, just to finish that off. I've read Game of Thrones before, but I was not in the mood for fantasy when I did read it. I'm getting way off topic. So, I will be finishing that one, which means I'm using my Audible credit for it because Audible likes to give you the first book in a series for free and then go, bitch, you gotta pay me. So I'll just be using my credit. I actually have 2 credits because I didn't use one from February, but I think I will be using the other one to do the 3rd book or finish off another series that I have not. So, yes, so my Audible credits, I have said before that I've been using them every month to do a Stephen King reread. However, I haven't read a physical Stephen King book this year, and the pacing's really nice for me, so sometimes when I feel like I'm struggling a little bit with actually reading things, I like to throw in a Stephen King book because even when they're big and chunky, I can kind of like read them. So instead of doing an audio book for Stephen King for a reread, I will be rereading The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. This is a very short book. This is a little closer to novella size. It's like 220 pages, if that. Yeah, it's like 218 pages. This follows a little girl who, on a hiking trip with her mom and her brother, gets lost in the woods, and it's her survival story. She's like 8 or 9 years old, and we're in her head through the whole time while she's like lost in the woods, and she comes across these things that are slightly paranormal, including like a very large bear and some other things that I always get vibes of like the Dark Tower when I read this, that it's somewhat connected based on some of the things. And so I really like this one. I have marked something from the last time that I read it, which was in like 2010 maybe is the last time I read this. And it was this also a reread for me the last time that I read this. And I had marked something that said, "The world is a worst case scenario, and I'm afraid all you sense is true," said the buzzing wasp voice. I was an emo kid. So anytime there's something about how terrible the world is in a Stephen King book, I have written that quote down. So anyway, this will be my Stephen King reread for the month of March. So that's 2 audiobooks and a physical book. And then I picked up some library books today, which I plan on getting through the month. So what I'm doing is I'm picking my 2 audiobooks in the beginning of the month, and then I will be picking up all sorts of other side quests. So what I'm doing, back on track, is because I'm such a mood reader, I'm picking my 2 audiobooks, my Stephen King reread, and then I will be picking just a few other books that I really want to read that feel like something I can definitely get through right now. And those will be my official TBR, so it's going to be very small because I will be side questing a bunch. So I will probably be doing some weekend vlogs, weekday vlogs, where I'm like, hey, I'm feeling the urge to just pick up some random stuff. Let's see what's available on Libby. Let's see what my library has, and just picking up a stack of books. So that's what I've done, and I'm not going to show you the whole stack, but I'm going to show you the ones that I want to get through this month at some point. So I have all these books for 3 weeks. The first one is a Libby book that I didn't have to put a hold on. I just checked it out. It is the 4th book in the Mercy Thompson series called Bone Crossed. Mercy Thompson follows a Native American woman living in Eastern Washington who is a shapeshifter. She can shift into a coyote shape, and she has a really close connection with the local werewolf pack. They're popcorn books, and I'm able to just keep going with them very, very quickly. So the next one is Bone Crossed, and I'll be reading that one. It's only like 280 pages, and I think Bloodbound was 280 pages, and I read it in like a day and a half because they're popcorn books. They're very easy to read. Okay, so the next thing I'll be doing is kind of March of Robots inspired. March of Robots is a drawing challenge created by this Instagram artist, right here. And it's basically just draw a robot for every day of March, which I won't be doing this year because I've just not been drawing as much lately, but I feel like I should read some sci-fi. And so what I did is I got a whole list of sci-fi suggestions from all of my not all, but a bunch of my Instagram followers, and I put together a list of what sounded like it would suit me the most, and I've made myself a little board, and the library had a couple of them today when I went. So I picked up 2 sci-fis. One is The Scourge Between Stars, and this was suggested to me originally by someone who I haven't been aligned with a lot of their other sci-fi reads, so I wasn't sure, but I did see Tori Morrow talking about it. Pretty sure that is her name. I'm so bad at remembering YouTubers' names. But I saw her talking about it and she was like, oh my god, yes, this is so good. And it's a military sci-fi, but I don't normally like those, or military-ish, but this one seems like it will be right up my alley. Do I remember the synopsis? I absolutely do not, but it's a short novella. And I feel like novellas are working for me right now, so I will give this one a go, and I'm excited for that. The next one was recommended to me by, I don't remember who. So this will be my 3rd Nnedi Okorafor. This is Shadow Speaker. Well, technically, I read the whole Binti trilogy. So does that make this my 5th Nnedi Okorafor? Or do we count the bind up as 1? I liked Binti a lot more than I liked Who Fears Death. I just felt there was some things in Who Fears Death that didn't work for me, but this one I've heard is really good. This is the new edition of an older one, because this one my library just got in December. So do I remember the synopsis for this? Absolutely do not. This is set in West Africa in 2074. It is an era of tainted technology and mysterious mysticism. A great change has happened all over the planet, and the laws of physics aren't what they used to be. I'm not going to read the rest of it. We're just going to go with that. So this will be one of my sci-fis. This one is actually not too super long either. I think Who Fears Death was like 400 pages. This is like 325. So this will be a fairly short-ish read, all things considered. And then the other library book I picked up today is, I have been on a digital waitlist for this for 12 weeks. And when it came through the first time, well, I had a 12-week wait. And when it came through, I was in the middle of all my other holds came through, of course, as always happens. And I just was not in a brain space for fantasy at that point in time. So I didn't get through it, so I put it off, and I'm on another 12-week hold. Because I was like, hey, give it to me in 2 weeks. And they were like, can't do that. Even though they said they could. So now I'm on a 12-week hold. I'm just waiting for it to come back. So, but they had the physical one. Nobody's waiting for the physical one, apparently. So I picked up the physical Adventures of Almina al-Sarafi. Come on, you know, everyone's talked about this one. I don't need to tell you what it's about again. It's a pirate. It's a woman who's middle-aged. It's a getting the gang back together. It's a fantasy that's not European, and I'm excited. Plus, it's got the cool art and the octopus, and who's the cover artist? Ivan Belikov. So, yes, I'm excited for this one. And Jade City. So I ordered Jade War and Jade Legacy. My hope is to get through Jade War this month, which should count, I believe it's over 500 pages. That one should count for the big fantasy challenge that I'm doing on Storygraph, which I'll put up here and a link to down below if you want to do it, if you read enough fantasy in January and February. It's basically read a fantasy book over 500 pages every month of the year. It can be audio or physical, so I could use any of my audiobooks that I'm going to be reading, but I am trying to do it physically, so I'm kind of upset this one is like, again, a little bit under. This one's like 460 pages. Jade City was 498. It was 2 pages under, so I read Swordcatcher, which sucked. Yes, and then I have these in this bag. So library haul coming up, and stay tuned for that. And I've got a vlog from my birthday weekend coming up where I'm going to be reading some of these things spread out here on the table, and doing some other things. A half-price books trip tomorrow, potentially. So stay tuned for that if you like vlogs. And thanks for hanging out with me and talking about the books I'm going to read this month. I'm going to put them all here. And I'll put what I read from last month right here. And we'll see how many I actually read. It was not a lot. And I'll be doing some other wrap-ups as time goes on throughout this first week of March, just to kind of give you a what I actually read list. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to do that, because I like looking at my stats, but I don't know if anybody else does. So, yeah. All right, I'll see you.